A very good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of the NSS Shivaji College chapter, I welcome you all to today's webinar on surviving the pandemic crisis, stress and lifestyle management. We at Shivaji College, a premier institution of the University of Delhi, believe in selfless community service and making a significant contribution to society. In the NSS, students and faculty work together to lend a helping hand to the community. We conduct numerous initiatives through the year related to environment, health, and rural education. We hope that today's webinar will be an enlightening and enjoyable experience for all. I request all participants to turn off their videos and audios during the webinar. I also request everyone to send their questions on the chat box, which will be handled after the talks. I would now like to invite our esteemed principal, Dr. Shiv Kumar Sehdev, to address the audience. Sir, if I may.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr.Ravinder Mamtani, Dr. Neelam Verma, all distinguished guests, all faculty members, and my dear students, I am very happy that NSS unit of Shivaji College has organized this webinar on a very relevant topic. I am happy that all my students are here to listen to you, and I am thankful to all my esteemed speakers for sparing time for our faculty and students. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I would now like to call upon Dr. Mridula to say a few words.
Morning, everyone. Stress has long been a part of our lives. In fact, today I'll say it is an enemy as well as a friend. Enemy because it kills us silently, and friend because it stays always. And in these times of coronavirus, the stress has increased further. Like we are dealing with the latest technology, how to connect with each other. So teachers are under stress. Students are under stress as how to cope with the open book examination and new systems of learning. Many people are losing their jobs. Numerous other problems have come up. So it becomes imperative that we discuss all these problems that have added to our stress in the times of corona. And I'm really thankful to our both speakers for today who will be guiding us as to how we can live a stressful life, especially in these times. Thanks to both of you and welcome to all the participants.
Thank you, ma'am, for those relevant words. I would now like to introduce our two speakers for today. Dr. Neelam Verma, today's webinar moderator, is a physician and cardiologist based in New Delhi. She is also a pioneer in stress management and integrative medical care. Her innovative programs of healing rhythms improve our natural healing intelligence through a scientifically proven process of biocosmic feedback mechanism. This aligns our body, mind, and heart with healing power of nature and modifies our immune biochemistry. Dr. Ravinder Mamtani is a professor and physician in Weill Cornell Medical College, an adjunct professor, Family and Community Medicine, New York Medical College. He is a specialist in preventive medicine, occupational medicine, lifestyle medicine, and public health. He has utilized integrative and lifestyle medicine in managing patients with chronic diseases such as chronic pain, arthritis, mental health conditions, obesity, and diabetes. He has also provided consultations on prevention of infectious diseases. Both our speakers are batchmates and graduates of the prestigious Maulana Azad Medical College, New Delhi. It is indeed wonderful to see such old friends interact and coordinate with us in our webinar. Neelam ma'am, I now request you to take over the proceedings.
Please. Thanks, Antara.
Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome to all the people who are there with us, all the participants and the faculty, and your principal also who is here with us. I welcome you all. Namaskar. I am Dr. Neelam Verma, and I am here today with my friend Dr. Ravinder Mamtani from US to talk about stress management and various lifestyle modifications that are needed to maintain a healthy body, mind, and heart. Most of you are students, so we would like to give you some easy insights relevant to your lifestyle. We would try to cover general challenges you come across now and will face in the future, as well as the specific challenge of COVID pandemic as we are facing, all of us are facing. During college days, students have a carefree attitude. आप लोगों की अपनी प्रायोरिटीज होती हैं. 12 वर्षों की एनक्लोज स्कूल लाइफ के बाद बाहर आकर आप खुलकर जीना चाहते हो, खुली हवा में सांस लेना चाहते हो और अपने एवर एक्सपेंडिंग फ्रेंड सर्कल के साथ घूमना फिरना चाहते हो. कॉलेज कैंपस में होने वाले स्पोर्ट्स इवेंट्स में, फेस्टिविटीज में और डिफरेंट एक्स्ट्रा करिकुलर एक्टिविटीज में पार्टिसिपेट करना चाहते हो. घर लौटने के बाद भी काफी समय सोशल मीडिया अपडेट्स में लगाते हो और फिर वे डाउन द लिस्ट आखिरकार आपका ध्यान एकेडमिक्स पर भी जाता है और आप अपने कैरियर के बारे में सोचना शुरू करते हो. उसमें कुछ आपको कंफ्यूजन्स होती हैं, पर फिर भी आप कुछ अपने आप फैसले लेते हो और अपने मन मुताबिक सब्जेक्ट्स को चूज करते हो. In between attending and bunking classes, suddenly come the semesters, the final exams, and then the report cards. Then you have to answer questions from your parents and pacify their anxieties. That is when you face the first stress, the basic stress of college life. Now, you all would have experienced what happens when your parents glares, you have to face them. Now, stressful situations in this kind, you must have experienced that your hands suddenly go cold, your legs start trembling, and your mouth dries up, and your heartbeat shoots up, and you get a choking sensation, palpitations. There is a twisting and turning in the gut. And if there is too much of the peer pressure and the sibling pressure, then that takes a toll on your appetite and sleep. You feel as though you have lost control of yourself. But after the situation resolves, your system cools down and you are back to your normal self. Then you plan a holiday to relax and recuperate away from all turmoil and prepare yourself to face fresh challenges in life. अब आप इमेजिन कीजिए कि ये स्ट्रेसफुल सिचुएशन जिनका आप कभी कभी सामना करते हैं, आपका शरीर कॉन्स्टेंटली फेस करता है. आप हर सांस के साथ बाहर से पॉजिटिव और नेगेटिव स्टिमुली आपके बॉडी में एंटर करते हैं और योर बॉडी इज ऑलवेज ऑन अ हाई अलर्ट. इट कॉन्स्टेंटली एनालाइजेस, filters and reacts to these external inputs and maintains the delicate balance of your diverse biological rhythms. कभी आप लोगों ने सोचा कि अगर आपकी बॉडी को सही से काम करने के लिए हर वक्त इतना सतर्क रहना पड़ता है तो वह रिलैक्स कब करती है? Your body relaxes in sleep. Every day when you go to sleep, your entire biochemical factory steps down. There is a physiological dip of all your body functions and when the daily wear and tear is repaired. Let's understand in brief how this repair system works, what impairs it, and how we can improve it. There is a vast universe outside you. You are not living alone. You are living in a vast universe which has its own cosmic rhythms. And there is a pulsating universe inside you with its biorhythms. So these are the biorhythms of your life, are like your heartbeat, your blood pressure, respiration, hunger, thirst, sleep, wakefulness are all parts of your biorhythms. Now they are kept in balance through a wave of reorganization which is active all the time. This is called the healing rhythm of life. Now, how well this healing rhythm works is your healing intelligence. It controls your natural defense mechanism and is directly affected by stress. Let us see how from a carefree attitude you get entrapped in stress. You may say, why worry about stress? It comes and it goes away. Why should I do anything about it? Well, if you do not de-stress yourself, stress acts like a slow poison. It accumulates in your emotional depths and affects your subconscious mind. This emotional stress affects your personal, physiological, psychological, and social networks. If you continue to ignore it, this emotional stress triggers a biochemical chain reaction. You suddenly start getting irritated and angry over little issues. And you try to hide your suppressions, your anxieties, your phobias, while all the people around you can see the changes in you, but you yourself are suffering from a silent stress and you still do nothing about it. This silent stress leads to congestion and suffocation of your emotional expression. You observe less, remember less, see less, learn less. In general, become less efficient. Even microbes attack, accidents happen, and violent episodes get escalated if you physically, mentally, or emotionally let them do so. Now, next stage is that this emotional stress leads to psychological inefficiency, physiological inefficiency, intellectual inefficiency, professional inefficiency, and there is a compromisation in your attitude and personality, which lead to various developed mental behavioral problems like depression, delusions, obsessions, and phobias. This happening is a universal happening. It happens with everybody. It is nothing new for somebody to face these things. So we have to find a method. Stress management at this is to get out of this emotional exhaustion, which ultimately, when you do not manage stress, this emotional exhaustion ultimately hits your heart rate, blood pressure, respiratory rate, hormone levels, lipid levels, blood clotting factors, and various chemical toxins. This stage comes because the bioenergy of your healing intelligence goes into a quantum of descent. And depending that time when your healing intelligence goes low, depending upon your genetic predisposition, you happen to suffer from various lifestyle diseases like hypertension, angina, heart disease, obesity, diabetes, cancer, asthma, allergies, addictions. One of these happens to hit you, and that is when you suddenly feel that something has to be done. Now, the problem is that these diseases have a two-way cause and effect relationship with psychosomatic disorders, which is your psychological makeup. And that all those changes in the behavior which come, they go back and accelerate any of these which you have succumbed to. So this forms a trap. Stress management at this stage is to get out of this trap. You need to reverse the chain reaction so that your healing bioenergy enters into a quantum of ascent. And for this, various body-mind training programs and relaxation techniques are now being practiced all around the world. This medical stress management protocol is scientifically documented, evidence-based approach to reverse the lifestyle diseases. If you look at the structure of this program, you will see that it is inclusive of meditation along with exposure to nature and mindfulness. And you will also realize that traditional Indian philosophy, which has now been evolved, evaluated, and adopted by the Western world, includes all these elements. And why they have done it? Because there is one simple reason why the whole world accepted these is because there was a sudden surge of lifestyle diseases, and medico-surgical interventions alone were not being adequate to handle them. An integrative approach of wellness had to be explored and applied to control the epidemic proportions of these diseases in the Western world. Our indigenous system of healing, which had stood the test of time, was then accepted after it passed the various trials conducted by the Western medical fraternity. Let us quickly review what we used to practice as our daily routine and how it is still relevant today. The scientific principles of this practice are elaborated upon in the Yoga Sutra by Rishi Patanjali. The whole concept revolves around living in harmony with nature, because nature is the ultimate healer of your body, mind, and heart. The metaphysical knowledge of bioenergy in the Yoga Sutra corresponds systematically with the scientific observations of medical science. Based on the Yoga Sutra, we can visualize life as a metaphysical physical interface of electromagnetic vibrations which flow from the top of the skull to the tip of the spine in the form of our vital axis, and it has the vital life force coiled up at its base in the form of Kundalini. Now, this vital axis connects the vital life force through the nature, and it also allows its bioenergy to flow through the vital axis to various parts of the nervous system, circulatory system, and the microcellular network. Now, this vital axis has 7 major energy chakras arranged in a vertical sequence. These spinning spheres of radiant energy work in symphony like a dynamo. They regulate and distribute the bioenergy of the vital life force, that is, we can call them as biophotons, through our body, mind, and heart, and keep us alive. Now, they are also our healing centers and act as the receptors of the healing vibrations in the nature. You can see that this metaphysical physical interface corresponds to the anatomically to various organs and the body landmarks. Let us just understand what they are like. We have got at the base is the Muladhara chakra, which is at the base of the spine. Upper is the Swadhisthana chakra, which is opposite the sacrum. Then the Manipura chakra at the navel point. Anahat chakra, which corresponds to your heart. Vishuddhi chakra to your throat. Agya chakra to the medulla. And Sahasrara is an opening. So it's called a Randra or the crown gate, through which your consciousness opens to the higher sources of energy. Now, they also correspond to our neurohormonal system, that is to the nervous system and the hormonal system. They have a stimulatory sympathetic nervous system as well, which is our fight or flight response in face of stress. And to counterbalance it, we have got the parasympathetic relaxing nervous system, which is in the form of the vagus nerve. Now, their nerve plexus on either side of the vital axis are connected to corresponding healing centers as well as to the hormone glands. Together, they have a regulatory feedback effect on each other to keep you fit and healthy. This biological stress response system is called your HPA axis, and it maintains the equilibrium of your neurohormonal immune biochemistry. Its efficiency determines the level of your healing intelligence. The healing rhythms for stress management program we will practice today in the second part of this session combines the benefits of body-mind training as well as the relaxation techniques. And the practice is based on the principles of the Yoga Sutra, and its main elements are those which control your physical body, straight posture, basic yogic exercises, and soft flowing body movements. That which controls your prana, the mental body, that is the pranayam, and then which controls your emotional body through contemplation, concentration, and meditation. Now, this program leads to a lifestyle modification whereby it does not allow stress to get accumulated within your subconscious mind and emotional depths through a better alignment of body, mind, and heart. Healing centers become receptive to natural healing energy. A smooth flow of healing biophotons from vital life force takes place. There is a sympathetic parasympathetic balance of HPA axis is restored. Modulation of neurohormonal immune biochemistry takes place. Microcellular equilibrium is restored. And most important, there can even be a modification of DNA genetic coding. Now, as I wind up this part of my introductory talk, I would like to highlight a paradox, which the medical care has been supporting and promoting for the last 5 years. We created state-of-the-art super specialties to manage various lifestyle diseases along with robust diagnostic, pharmaceutical, and medico-surgical facilities in combo with attractive insurance policies. Even high-end yoga studio and resorts and food supplements were made available for a perfectly healthy lifestyle. We were even experimenting with immortality. But ironically, while we exhausted all the financial and research resources in these things, we missed out on poor man's set of diseases caused by microbes. We believed that microbes are only limited to the third world. With the high level of hygiene and sanitation that affluent countries had achieved, they felt that there was no need to get prepared for something that would ultimately produce such a mass hysteria and threaten the survival of human species. Thankfully, this pandemic is not caused by a killer superbug from their hospitals. Otherwise, human race would have been extinct by now. Seeing what a low virulence COVID-19 from China, intentional or unintentional, is doing to us, it should be a wake-up call for medical healthcare providers and policymakers. With these words, I invite my friend Dr. Ravinder Mamtani to focus upon the challenge of surviving COVID-19 pandemic, which has held the whole world to ransom and may continue to research in multiple waves for quite some time, keeping us under a severe psychological, medical, and socio-economical stress. Thank you.
Thank you, Neelam. सबसे पहले तो मैं NSS शिवाजी कॉलेज को बहुत अपनी तरफ से appreciation और sincere thanks करना चाहूँगा for inviting me to talk to you on two very crucial subjects, namely COVID-19, जिसने दुनिया को ऊपर नीचे कर दिया है, और उसके बाद lifestyle health. So I want to begin by expressing my appreciation again, sincere thanks to Dr. Shiv Kumar, the principal, Dr. Ruchira, and beautiful, generous introductions by Anthra and Radullah. But I also want to say thank you so much to Neelam, my colleague, for over 45, I forget, Neelam, how long we've known each other, more like maybe 45, 50 years now. Chalo, okay, let's
half a century.
So let's not get into ages. So I am very delighted to be here. As was mentioned, I am a graduate of University of Delhi. I spent all my time in Delhi before I left the country and went abroad. But every now and then, when I think about my origin, about my country, I'm so attracted, wanting to do things in India. And my participation here this morning for me, but afternoon for you, is a reflection of my thought process. So with that, I take it screen दिख रहा है सबको मेरा?
Yes.
तो मेरी दो पार्ट की डिस्कशन होगी. पहले कोरोना पैंडेमिक के ऊपर बात करूंगा, उसके बाद अडॉप्टिंग हेल्थी लाइफस्टाइल, जो कि नीलम ने बहुत अच्छी तरह से इन अ वे बाय स्ट्रेस मैनेजमेंट प्रेजेंट किया है. And in doing so, I am going to focus on chronic diseases. I am required as a faculty member at Cornell, I'm required to disclose that I have no financial relationships and I will not be using any unlabeled or unapproved use of drugs. So let's begin with where the world is at the moment. So I want to begin my discussion by presenting to you the context that we are in. So these are the numbers from World Health Organization that non-communicable diseases, namely, if I would use the word NCD, I'm referring to these chronic diseases such as heart, cancer, diabetes, hypertension, and so on and so forth, to which Neelam alluded earlier. So 70% of people are dying from these diseases worldwide. And they're dying early. And many of them, before they die, they live with pain and suffering. 22% of people worldwide are in vulnerable settings. That makes things work. I'm referring to conflict zones, droughts, famine. So, as I was saying, we are living in a world surrounded by chronic diseases. 22% of people are in disadvantaged situations. You know, we never think that 7 million people on an annual basis are dying because of air pollution. And I think Neelam referred to this. We're also surrounded by weaker healthcare systems. Affordability is an issue for most people around the world, including in India. And then, of course, communicable diseases, which is what we are challenged with in this day and age. Now, to expand on the context, I think it's important we keep in mind that we are living in a rapidly changing, very complex world. The population is increasing. The density of people living in urban areas such as Delhi is growing by leaps and bounds. People are traveling more. There are a lot of environmental changes. Deforestation is a case in point. But this is where I think is an important moment for this discussion, that we are sharing an environment with animals. We love animals. Animals love us. We depend on them, and they depend on us. But the picture is not as rosy as one would like to think. Things go wrong. And two cases in point that have happened recently, you've probably heard of the avian flu. I wish I'll come back and talk more about it, which we know has come from migratory birds, and the most recent pandemic, namely that of coronavirus, which we think, in fact, we know comes from bats. So these are the so-called zoonotic diseases that are shared between animals and people. It's surprising, in fact, quite noteworthy that 60% of infectious disease in humans are spread from animals. And they're responsible for about 2.5 billion cases of illnesses worldwide, resulting in 2.7 million deaths. Now, that's very important. And when you look at these diseases, what you see is they're emerging or re-emerging all over the world. And here is a list of diseases that was presented by one of the senior officials of the US government before the Senate committee about 4 or 5 years ago, presenting to the Senate the seriousness of these problems. And as you can see, they're spread all over and occurring in different magnitude. And they occur either as what we call as endemic diseases, which is occurrence of diseases at a low prevalence, or they can sometimes flare up. We refer to that as an outbreak. And when they clearly exceed in terms of what expectations are, we call them an epidemic. So Corona began as an epidemic, and then it went on to become a pandemic, which is what the fourth definition here is, which is a condition that spreads worldwide and spreads rather rapidly. And that's what we are dealing with at the moment. So based on our current experience and experiences of the 4 major pandemics that we've seen in the past, we know that they're caused by a new agent. So coronavirus is a new agent. They spread very rapidly. They're very difficult to stop. We may mitigate them, slow them down, but they're extremely difficult to stop, as we are seeing with COVID-19. The death rates are usually high, and I'll come to that in a few minutes. And oftentimes there will be a second and a third wave. We saw that. We saw that with the Spanish flu that happened in 1918. And they love poverty. They love socioeconomically disadvantaged communities. They overload our systems, and we've seen that in India, in the US, and worldwide, and more than often than not, resulting in serious social and economic disruptions. But with that comes fear and confusion. And I'll talk about that, and so will Neelam in a few minutes. But the one optimistic note in all of this is that once you begin to understand them, you can basically find ways and means to control them. Look what we did with smallpox. The world got together and eradicated smallpox, a scourge that was killing millions of people worldwide. There is also hope that polio, which we've eliminated from many geographical regions, will be wiped out, hopefully eradicated. And then we saw the recent bird flu of H1N1 in 2009 that we were able to control quite effectively. So here's the story with COVID-19, which is caused by a SARS-CoV-2 virus. It is a new virus, was never ever previously identified, causes the disease called COVID-19. That's the name given to the disease. We are almost certain that this originated from a bat. It's a bat virus. Now, I must hasten to add that coronaviruses are a large family. Some of the other benign strains have been circulating in human populations and have resulted in common colds that we see almost on an annual basis. But the story with COVID-19 is somewhat different. So let's look at the basics. And please help me understand if I'm being too basic, but I want to tell you a story. So as I tell you a story, I keep building upon the story in different steps. So when the virus enters human body, it can either establish itself or not establish itself. If it establishes itself, we say virus has resulted in infection. When we use the word infection, we are referring to established virus in human body. When infection leads to symptoms and signs, we say infection has resulted to infectious disease. So there would be a difference between co-virus infection and COVID-19, which is a disease with symptoms and signs. And again, as I use these words, I wanted you to appreciate the difference between these two. So between the receipt of infection and the occurrence of the disease called COVID-19, there is a period that we call incubation period. So in most people who get exposed and until they result COVID-19, there's an incubation period with a range of 2 to 14 with an average of about 5 to 6 days. So as I was saying, the incubation period of 2 to 14 days. So when we talk about usko quarantine kar diya 14 dinon ke liye, the understanding is that if people are kept in quarantine, if they have to develop symptoms, that they will develop within a maximal period of 14 days. If they don't, they're free to move around. So there was incubation period of up to 14 days, which is why we quarantine people for up to 14 days is what we do. Now, the disease presents itself with fever, cough, breathing difficulty, diarrhea, fatigue, and we classify diseases as mild, severe, and critical. And based on people who presented at the moment, 80%, more than 80% are either mild or asymptomatic, and 15% are severe, and about 5% are critical. This is based on the cases that are reported. We must also recognize that about a certain percentage of people who are elderly and have chronic conditions are more likely to develop severe form of the disease. Now, COVID-19 clinical symptomatology, जैसे present करते हैं patients, is an evolving story. जब हमने शुरू में देखा था, we saw कि fever, cough वगैरह होता है, but as you see, we are learning a lot more about COVID-19 clinical presentation that we did before. And again, I don't have the time to go into it, but just needless to say that the story of clinical picture of COVID-19 is an evolving one. Now, there are people who are at higher risk. Clearly, people who suffer from chronic conditions such as hypertension, heart disease, diabetes, asthma, lung conditions are at a greater risk. They have 6 times higher hospitalizations and 12 times higher deaths when they have these conditions. Equally important to understand that elderly people who are 70 and above, I'm using the word 70 with caution because the risk keeps increasing. So if you're 90 and above, your risk will be much higher. That said, children, especially under 9, the condition is, I wouldn't say non-existent, but the rates are very, very low. So we have these risk factors, but we also have children who almost suffer from just very minimal incidents. This is known to all of you. I will not repeat it, but I will make it a point again because the value of understanding how the virus is spread is extremely important by respiratory droplets when people sneeze or cough. And if these droplets fall on objects, you touch those objects, or you come in close contact with people who have respiratory droplets on them. Then, of course, there's this recent thinking about aerosols, which are tinier particles. So when people cough, some of these tinier particles can remain in the air for up to 3 hours. The question is whether they are responsible for community transmission or not. It's the jury still out. That being said, people such as healthcare providers who are engaging in procedures such as functioning or resuscitating patients in hospitals may be at risk of these aerosols, because जब आप procedure कर रहे हैं, ये चीजें सारी, they're going all over the place. And the feeling is these aerosols can remain in the air for about 3 hours, which could present a risk. I must also add that people who do not suffer symptoms, any symptoms, as I said earlier, or who haven't developed the symptoms yet, can also transmit infection. So to understand the transmissibility, we must understand, like I said earlier, ये co-infection हुआ, उसके बाद symptoms हुए. So there's a period of 1 to 3 days prior to onset of symptoms in which a person can be transmissible to others in the community. And then, of course, I mentioned asymptomatic. So these blue bars that you see are the areas where you can see transmissibility to people in the community. Now, you know this, washing hands often, and then if you touch things, avoiding touching your nose, mouth, cover your coughs and sneezes, wearing masks, staying at home, avoid large gatherings, and distancing yourself for up to by 2 meters. I know हम इसकी बात करते रहते हैं, but yet when you look at the communities, these things are not being practiced. तो इसको practice करना बहुत जरूरी है. And I do want to make 3 important points on this. There is no one single method that will offer complete protection. For people to think that they have a mask on and they can ignore other methods of prevention, that's not good. So all methods must be used, must be optimized in order to attain full protection from COVID-19. And simplicity, no matter how simplistic they are, koi baat nahi, haath dho lenge, ye kar lenge, we should not belittle their value. I understand that science, medication sound very powerful, as Neelam said, they seem, but I can tell you, based on the evidence that we are looking at, the wonderful things that these simple things can do to avoid COVID-19 are amazing. How serious is COVID-19? इसकी बातें होती रहती हैं, ये तो बहुत dangerous बीमारी है, सबको मार देगी, and so on and so forth. So let me spend a minute on how serious is this problem. तो सबसे पहले तो आप देखिए अबाउट आज मॉर्निंग में पता नहीं ये जून 19th का डेटा है आई थिंक इट्स ऑलमोस्ट क्लोज टू 10 million maybe half a million people have died that gives you a rate of about 5%. The other way to know it is कि previous pandemics के साथ इसका कैसा comparison है और जो आजकल हम देखते रहते हैं that's mortality fatality. Now, I will say this, you cannot imagine how many discussions I've had with my colleagues and communities. Looking at numbers alone has no meaning. If there are 100 deaths in a community of 1,000 people, that would be different from 100 deaths in a community of 1,000,000 people. So let's ignore the numbers unless we can relate these numbers to what I call as a denominator. बड़ी सिंपल तरीके से एक्सप्लेन कर रहा हूं जिसको हम रेट कहते हैं. तो हम अब ये देखते हैं कि कैसे इसने कंफ्यूजन किया है. अच्छा, सबसे पहले तो दिस इज मोर्टेलिटी फ्रॉम प्रीवियस एपिडेमिक्स. अब देखिए ये 500,000 यहाँ पे नीचे है. एंड इफ यू वर टू कन्वर्ट द डेथ टू द अदर पैंडेमिक्स, ये प्रीवियस 4 पैंडेमिक्स को देखिए, the death rate from certainly almost all of them is much higher as compared to what we are experiencing with COVID-19. Now, that does not belittle the fact that we have a pandemic. I'll come to that in a second. But look at the number of people who died. If we were to convert those deaths into aaj ki tareekh mein, in 1918, 1922, between 74 and 433 million people died from that pandemic. And look at some of the other numbers here. तो हम इसके साथ आगे चलते हैं. तो as I said earlier, you must relate deaths to the total population या reported. तो ये चाइना का डेटा है, and I want to make a very important point here. So a case fatality rate is number of deaths that occur in cases that are being reported to healthcare institutions. ठीक है? तो चाइना में उन्होंने देखा कि out of 44,000 people who reported to hospitals, about 1,033 died. That was a rate of approximately 2.3%. For every 1,000 diagnosed cases that reported to institutions, 23 people died. Now, research has indicated that the ones who are asymptomatic or mild don't even approach these hospitals. So this denominator is probably humongous. There's a large number of people who never report, and they must appear in the denominator to understand the complete rate of mortality. तो उसको अगर आप नीचे infection को ले आइए, we call that infection fatality rate. So people are going from understanding what is a case fatality rate to an infection fatality rate. तो I'll share this with you. New York State, मैं New York में रहता हूँ, तो मेरे को interest है. तो ये अप्रैल की कहानी है from 2020 in New York State. April, May, there were 263,000 people who were documented cases. 15,000 died. From that, you have a rate of 6%. So people are saying out of every 100 people, 6 persons are going to die. That is true. But that's only for cases who report with symptoms and who appear before hospitals and doctors. But there is this asymptomatic, a big, big denominator. In New York State, it was 14%, which is 2.7 million people. So the actual rate in New York State, if you take this into account, was 15,740 divided by 2.7 million, which is a rate of 0.5%. So look at the difference, 6% on the one hand, 0.5%. And I'm telling you, I look at these numbers, I look at sometimes BBC, CNN, Indian television ko, itne log mar gaye. Please, the one thing we must do is we must ask the question, what are you reviewing when you're looking at the data? Are you reviewing deaths among reported cases, which excludes mild and asymptomatic cases, or are you reviewing total number of deaths among those infected, which is a much larger number? So I honestly feel that there are two disease entities in this COVID-19. There is the one, which to me is benign, mild, and most young, healthy people, they recover without any problems. And I can tell you that many people I know in Delhi, I'm a Delhiite, I have spoken to them, they've had COVID-19, it's behind them. But that being said, we should not belittle the value of those who are at risk, which is elderly people and those with chronic conditions. Now, obviously, COVID-19, and some of you so nicely said, imagine what COVID-19 has done other than the mortality it has created. उल्टा सीधा कर दिया. Healthcare disruptions, ventilators की न्यूयॉर्क में, US में बात हो रही थी. Care and follow-up, patients डरे हुए हैं. They do not want to go to hospitals. Unemployment, loss of income. 40 million people have filed for unemployment benefit in the US. There is domestic abuse, there's depression, there are divorces, there are suicides, and people who are living in low to middle income communities are suffering from malnutrition and basic needs. But also for many people in urban areas, there are altered lifestyles. They're changing in the way they are behaving. It is an evolving, is the fog of a pandemic, or perhaps the fog of information overload. We know there are clear uncertainties, even though I said there is pre-symptomatic, asymptomatic transmission. Unka spread kitna hai, we don't understand. The whole story behind aerosol, not quite well known. Immunity hogi infection ke baad. Duration kitni hai uski? Partial ya complete hai. Two or more answers to every question. Chloroquine ki kahani dekhiye. Masking ki dekhiye. Up until a week ago, WHO did not even convey a message to us that masking is important. So, ye cheezein confusion, or ye slide basically WHO stumbled. एक comment था कि asymptomatic transmission is very rare. Wrong. They've gone back and withdrawn that statement. Maska, as I explained. Now, fear and anxiety due to uncertainty is legitimate. डरे हुए लोग, obviously, और वो legitimate है to the extent it presents a problem. But अगर आप किसी बीमारी को कि ये snake flu है, killer disease है, और अगर आप truth को थोड़ा सा टेढ़ा मेढ़ा कर दीजिए, तो वो dangerous चीजें हैं. उसमें misinformation बन जाती हैं. And I can tell you one thing, I'm a public health guy. Uncertainties can almost always lead to rumors. If they're established, but they're very difficult to fight. I heard this someone said to me, once a COVID, always a COVID. Nonsense. This is not true. People recover, do well, and we understand that many may end up becoming immune. The duration of that immunity is a question. And it can lead to confusion. And we've seen many examples, and your fatality rate, that's why I said it's important to see what it is we are measuring. Extremely important. So when we sensationalize an outbreak, either reports may or media stories may, we are belittling the scientific truth. And consequently, this poses a threat to the true public understanding of the disease. Public is smart, they understand. But once you taint the truth, that's not a good thing. And that's exactly what happens. It creates fear, loss of control, and stress. And I think managing stress in those situations is important, about which Neelam will talk. So to me, COVID-19 and what I'm sharing with you today is based on what I know. You cannot come back and say, Ravi, this is what you told us a week ago. This is nothing new. So please keep in mind there are uncertainties. It is an evolving story. It is widespread. It has serious consequences. I think there are two disease entities to understand it better. A benign kind of a disease in young people and severe. And we must protect the elderly and those with condition. There are uncertainties, clearly that's the case. Simple preventive measures can mitigate its spread. And I made that point. And I'm almost certain there will be a vaccine one day. But please, let's stay away from misinformation, fake news. It's not helping us. And I think as we go through this, managing stress is extremely important. And more importantly, equally important, is relying on the scientific truth. If we don't rely on the scientific truth, then in a way, we turn pain into suffering by adding on all kinds of beliefs, interpretations, and judgments that go with it. So, usse main aapka shukriya ada karta hu for you listening to me on this brief introduction, and I will now invite Neelam to perhaps share her thoughts on how to manage stress and what are the practical ways of handling this. Shukriya.
Thank you, Ravi. This was very enlightening, actually. This is an era with social media where we have information and counter information. So what ultimately leads up the stress of sickness and illness is there. To that, on top of that, the stress of these unbalanced informations, which you have done really wonderfully today to let the audience get to the real information, the real truth, where we stand today, both the risk as well as the hope, and how to protect ourselves. With all the things that you have talked about of what it can lead to in the coming times, that it will come under control with some vaccine, and in the meantime we can say protected. Of course, building up our immunity and being able to manage the stress associated with it will do us, really will be the main sheet anchor of our surviving through this pandemic crisis. So I will now talk about the stress management, the practical aspect, and how it works and how we can practically do it. So I will be taking that up now. And once you learn that sequence, the scientific principles behind it, and practice them as and when you can, and find some time for it, it is not going to take you a long time. If you make it a regular habit, if not every day, as frequently as you can, then any stress can be managed. Then you do not have to, really work about कि अब हम stress को कैसे manage करें. So make stress management your habit. With that, I will now proceed with what a stress management program is ultimately going to do. All stress management programs, they work on your mind. It is your mind where the stress gets generated, and it is your mind where it can get resolved. Now, stress is a mind game. It plays havoc with your mind. Your attitude, your personality, and your behavior all depend on your mind. But it is difficult to work on the mind directly. You have to approach mind indirectly. So for this, I have prepared a comprehensive plan by the name Healing Rhythms for Stress Management based on the Yoga Sutra. Now, the first step is your posture. You have to make sure that you sit straight with your back straight. This is the basic requirement. If you look at the time clock of Earth, human beings have learned to stand up. As soon as you straighten up your back, your healing centers come in a proper alignment, and your muscles get better toned up. Your lungs, your heart, your circulation, and your neurohormonal system all perform better. I will just demonstrate this and a few more points. Please wait till I just make some adjustment. Yes, that's correct. So, the basic thing is that you have to correct your posture. I think I can be heard.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, you can.
The basic thing is that you have to correct the posture and keep your back straight. Now, you must experience what straight means. So for that, you can take a support of the wall and stand with your back against the wall. Now, make sure that the back of your head, your shoulders, your hips, and your knees, they all are pressing against the wall. Try to press slightly. You will find that your shoulders will brace up. This will give a little bit of stretch and onto small muscles supporting your spine. You must be able to feel this, experience this, and breathe slowly while you are straight. Your back is straight. And try to maintain this posture not only while you are practicing any yoga exercise or meditation, try to make it your habit. While you work on the laptop, feel this. What if I gave you a demonstration of the experience? You all must go and try this. Then you will realize that all your shoulder muscles will raise them up, to feel the small muscles in your at the back of your column getting stretched. That is what is needed. Once your back is aligned, your whole system it relaxes. Your breathing, you are able to breathe also better. And while you go for a walk, or you read a book, or you write something, always take care of this one thing. It will help you a lot. Now, the second part, when you start off with those exercises which we talked about, you must do some gentle stretches for a warm-up, in which you can just let your system soft and gentle, and breathe with it. As you move, inhale. This prepares your body, mind, and heart for the yogic exercise. Now, the second step which we saw after the first step was the yogic exercise, in which I would, according to your age group, there is one yoga asana which I would all of you must learn and practice it as frequently as you can. It is very easy. It is called Vajrasana. I will show you how it is done. You have to sit on the knees and then bend down. And keep your hands on the laps and just breathe easy. Close your eyes for a few minutes. With this, if you just interlock your fingers, it improves the effect of it. This is one, this you can practice it. You can practice it for half a minute to 2 to 5 minutes as long as you can. This one, yogasana, can be of help to keep your body, not only your muscular system strong, your joints flexible, and at the same time it builds up your self-confidence. It is excellent de-stress tools. Now, after this, you must understand that you might be doing more of the yogic exercises, which you can do and suits your system. I will not go into the details of that, but I will like to tell you that there is a basic difference you should understand between yogic exercises and so many other types of exercises which keep on coming as fact. The basic difference is that in the yogic exercises, they not only work on your physical body, they also work on your mental body and your emotional body. And at the same time, they are always coordinated with the breath. Whenever you perform any yoga pose, you inhale, stay in the pose as long as you can, and at that time, inhale and exhale comfortably. And as you come back from the pose to the normal position, you exhale. Take some time, take 2 to 3 normal breaths, and then you can redo or do the next yoga. There is a warning. It's very important. Never ever work with pain. However, your gym trainer, your yoga trainer, anybody can tell you, thoda sa darad to bardasht karna hai. No. It is only under a supervised medical practitioner that you must take the advice if any exercise is causing you pain. Let him make up your plan for that in case there is any. And otherwise, if you keep on working to pain, you will land on an orthopedic table or on neurosurgery. And then with that, please do not go to higher levels looking at the unguarded videos on the YouTube and all that. Please take either a professional yoga trainer's help or medical help, and there are people who are taking up the therapeutic yoga programs also, which are extremely helpful, but they must be done under a medical specialist. because first the diagnosis is to be made. Do not go symptomatically. मुझे यहाँ pain हो रहा है इसलिए मैं therapeutic yoga करा रहा हूँ. But first find out what the cause of the pain. Now after you are through with the yogic exercises, you should do some soft flowing body movements. These movements, they relax your subconscious mind immediately. For this, it is very easy. You have to just look at the nature around. The soft flowing body movements are a part of the nature. You can see how the birds fly, how the trees sway in the breeze, how the water in the river flows, how the waves of the ocean rise and fall. And all these movements in the nature are streamlined. So try to copy them and just let your muscles flow. And never stretch out too much, and they should be, you will find that for the streamlined movements, your hands move opposite to the movement of the arms. So you can imagine yourself flying like a bird, floating on the river. So these are used in the contemplation part, in the while you are given the visual ways to imagine yourself. So it is a relaxing exercise which helps in your system to release the stress. After this, it is your breathing. The second part we talked about was the pranayama. Pranayama is the breath control. In the breath control, you can learn basically to be aware of how you breathe. So for this, most of us do not know while in yoga how the breath has to be accompanied with. So you breathe in, you first see me, then I will explain you. So you breathe in, and as you breathe out, you suck the stomach in. You will go step by step. You breathe in easily. Breathe out and suck the stomach in. Hold the breath. Then as you breathe in, let the stomach expand. And breathe more deeply. Let your chest expand. And let this wave of expansion go up to the top of the chest, top of the lungs. You know your top of the apex of the lung is the least oxygenated part. So you must learn how to be aware of how you breathe so that the movement of the lungs, the expansion of the lungs, and when you suck the stomach in by exhaling and expand the stomach while inhaling, your breathing becomes diaphragmatic. It takes away 40% of the load from your chest muscles. So automatically, the relaxation of your upper body takes place, and this improves your venous return, the blood coming back to your heart, and the circulation, and at the same time also the oxygenation. Again, there is a warning. Do not do more than 3 deep breaths at a stretch. Always break it. Go for a normal breathing 2 to 3 times, then again. Same thing, some people are advised to do fast breathing. Never do it in excess of 3 to 5 minutes at a time because it changes your oxygen carbon dioxide levels inside your blood. The balance is very essential to keep your system working properly. To hyperventilate, you can get dizziness, you can get symptomatic, you can faint. So these warnings have to be taken care of. Medically, what is right for your healthy body should be done. It should not make you fall sick. And then, of course, the traditional method of Anulom Vilom Pranayama, where you breathe in and out to alternate nostrils, in which in, out, in. Well, this too, it is based on the concept that the left side is parasympathetic and the right side is sympathetic. So this kind of the breathing, it takes up the balancing tone. It works on the balancing tone of the sympathetic system. But again, there is a warning. People with acute stress, people suffering from blood pressure, and people suffering from heart disease should breathe in only from the left. They should only activate the inhalation to their left side. Now for contemplation, concentration and meditation, I will come back to my seat. Just one minute. Okay. Now, once with these steps, you can start with the mind control. Once your physical steps are, your physical body is under your control, you can start with the mind control. Now, contemplation is narrowing down of your thoughts. And to narrow them down, you should bring them to your own self. You will find it is very difficult. To think about your own self, your inner self, it is almost impossible. We all are so extrovert. We like looking outside. And those who are introvert, they only think of the sorrows inside. So how to contemplate? Again, it is looking out that will take you in. So you look at the nature outside. Now, whatever exists in nature, or that is what is the macrocosm or the samashti, that also exists in you, the microcosm or the vyashti. So nature is made of panchatattva, which are represented on your 5 fingers. The earth, water, fire, air and sky. This panchatattva makes the macrocosm outside as well as your microcosm. And they make up your body, mind and heart. Now, through modulating this panchatattva through the hand mudras, you can regulate the energy of these elements inside you. The basic mudra, which we all practice during any yoga practice or stress management practice everywhere, is the Gyan mudra, which is the unison, which is a symbolic of the unison of your consciousness with the cosmic consciousness, or you can call it God in whichever form you want to. Now, then next is the Apan Vayu Mudra. From Gyan Mudra, you slip the index finger to touch the ball of the thumb. And then touch the next 2 fingers lightly with the thumb and let the little finger stand out. This is your Gyan Mudra. And keeping your Gyan Mudra, you have to breathe with it like I have told you. 3 breaths, then take a gap. You can do this, each of the mudra, it is up to you. You can take only 1 to 2 breaths or you can take 10 to 20. You will feel the benefit. Now this Apan Vayu Mudra, it controls the your heart and your digestion. These 2 functions of your body are controlled by this. And then is the Pran Mudra. From this Apan Vayu Mudra, you open up all your fingers and now touch the last 2 fingers with your thumb lightly. And this Pran Mudra, this works on your nervous system, your memory, your intelligence, and even your intuition. So this is, I have already explained that breathing. See, these various steps that we talked about, they are not like steps of a ladder. They are like spokes of a wheel. They all can be practiced at the same time. It is only to learn, we have to learn them step by step. Once we know them, once we have learned them, we can, if we use them like spokes of a wheel, the wheel is put into action. And now from this Pran Mudra, we can help our metabolism with the Surya Mudra, where from your open fingers, the ring finger presses the ball of the thumb and is pressed down by the thumb. This is good for your metabolism as well as, and more so for your thyroid function. And then I had already spoken of the Sahaj Shankha Mudra, where you interlock. See, all your acupressure points, when you do the simple posture of your hand gesture of Namaste, you are coinciding all your acupressure points and you are giving them light pressure which are going to work on your entire body. So while you are doing Namaste to somebody, you are also doing a big favor to your own self, your own body. And if you press your fingers and the palms together, you will a little more and breathe in with it, you will be strengthening your shoulder girdle, which is the one which maintains your upright posture. So these combination of the Sahaj Shankha Mudra, as I had shown you with Vajrasana, has miraculous effect on your immunity. Now, it is easy for a contemplative mind to concentrate. Now, concentration should again be on your inner self, but it is very difficult. So we start with the external. You can focus upon any simple thing which you like, which is your choice, which you have got faith in, which your mind wants, is happy with. Like it could be a flower, it could be a bindu on a wall, it could be a yogic yantra, it could be a source of light, like a flame of a candle or a diya, or it could be any statue which you love to look at, or it could be any symbol. And you can breathe in and out with it. And slowly from that is a gateway for you to enter into your own self. Then slowly you shift your attention to the center of your eyebrows and try to breathe from the eyebrows, the central point, which is your third eye. This makes you introspective. And at this stage, as soon as you become introspective, the filtration function of your mind improves. And what happens is that we talked about in the first session about the positive and the negative stimuli and the factors in the environment outside us. The mind is able to filter out the negative factors, and then only the positive vibrations go in. And you can try to inhale these vibrations and let them go deep down to your vital axis. All you know now, what I talked about in pranayam, the breathing and the mudra and the contemplation and this concentration upon the third eye point, this all when it works together, slowly the outside world changes for you. And a peaceful state of meditation descends upon you. So meditation as such, there is so much of the talk about it, how to do meditation. You do not do meditation, you get prepared for meditation and then meditation happens to you. You get into the vibrations of the cosmic consciousness. Your consciousness opens to the higher sources of energy, and the congestion and suffocation of your emotional expression, which we talked about in the first part, they all get replaced by a feel of expansion. You are able to feel the realms beyond your physical body. While going inside, you are able to, we talked about in the healing centers, the Sahasrara, which is the gateway, that opening of your life force to the higher energy sources takes place. These things are all can be planned out. This is the whole metaphysical science of the Yoga Sutra, that to make you become from a single human body, the cosmic body, to get you identified with that. That changes your perspective of the world. And the entire chain reaction which we talked about, the emotional exhaustion, that is reversed. There is an upgradation of your psychological, physiological, intellectual, professional, all your efficiencies, they all improve, and your attitude and your personality undergo a total revamp. Your response, the stress remains. Your response to stress becomes positive, and Any lifestyle diseases you are suffering from can be reversed by this process. If you practice it regularly, you can start life fresh every morning with every sunrise without any backlog. For managing COVID-19 pandemic, give me a few moments. I would like to share with you people a 2-minute yoga video clip.
Of your thumb to the tip of your fingers, one by one. Step 2. Interlock the fingers of both hands. Keep your thumbs side by side. Take in a deep breath and then breathe out completely. And while doing so, suck your stomach inwards. Now, hold your breath and move your stomach out and in 5 times. At the count of 6, slowly breathe in. Let your stomach and chest expand. With daily practice, you can slowly increase this count to 10 and improve your respiratory efficiency and get extensive health benefits. Step 3. With your fingers interlocked, raise your hands above your head and breathe in. Stretch your spine upwards. As you breathe out, bring down your hands. Step 4. Next, raise your hands above your head, breathe in. In the same breath, bend to either side. As you breathe out, bring down your hands. Breathe easy. Close your eyes and hold your arms across your chest. You may say your prayers if you wish. Lastly, take a deep breath, rub your palms vigorously, touch them to your eyes, feel the healing biophotons flow free through your body. This protocol raises our immunity and also helps diagnostically. In early stages of coronavirus infection, you would not be able to perform it.
So this was a little bit of the practice where you have to, with your, after exhaling, with your stomach sucked in, you just move it out and in without breathing. For 3 to 5 to 10 to 20 counts you can go. And then as you breathe, you expand your stomach and your chest and your lungs. And this is very helpful. This, the lung functions you can immediately know. Besides a stress management program, there are many other lifestyle modifications that you should know about to tide over sudden stressful situations like the pandemic we are facing right now. Over to Ravi to elaborate upon. Thank you.
Thank you, Neelam. So, so let's talk about lifestyle health. I take it you can all see my slides? Yes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can see
Thank
them.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do in the next 15 to 20 minutes is I'm going to examine the relationship between lifestyles, things that we do day in and day out, and the relationship to chronic diseases, which we know are highly prevalent in urban areas. So I'll do that for the first 10 minutes, and then I'll tell you a story. And after the story, I will conclude by making another 1 or 2 remarks. So when you look at India, it is doing extremely well if you were to measure India by way of life expectancy. So we know that the life expectancy, which is the number of years a newborn is expected to live, is about 69 years in India as compared to, let's say, 79, 78 in the US. So we're doing quite well. But here's a problem. Many nations, low or middle income nations, India as a case in point, are caught between two scenarios. we are facing a double-edged sword, as I describe it. We still are grappling with malnutrition, infections, and so on and so forth on the one hand, among the underprivileged, but we are also dealing with now rising epidemics of obesity, diabetes, heart disease among those who have in abundance. Now, in that picture of chronic diseases, the ones that I referred to, we are facing 4 or 5 major problems. Number one, premature mortality. And I'm sure you know from your relatives, loved ones, there is this premature death from a variety of chronic conditions, heart disease as an example, but there are others, diabetes, cancer, and so on and so forth. The feeling is that people are dying earlier because of these diseases as compared to other societies. With these, there is also pain and suffering. There is chronic pain. The mental health problems are on the rise. There's also rising incidence of obesity and diabetes. I'll show you some data. And number 4, here is the saddest problem, that many people, despite having problems for a long time, are not aware that they suffer from a problem. And a case in point is diabetes. I know of people in India, and I must say, even in the US, who do not know they have diabetes unless they've ended up in an emergency room with chronic renal failure, ready to go under dialysis. That to me is very, very sad. And of course, the most recent aspect of all this is the excessive use of medication that Neelam talked about earlier. Now, when you look at the risk factors that result in many of these diseases, I won't go into the details. Here is a listing of at least 10 trials performed around the world that have documented that the major risk factors that are causing these illnesses include tobacco use, unhealthy diet, lack of exercise, overweight, and a wide range of mental health problems, stress, and depression, to name a few. So this is the data from India, and I'm just focusing on India. If you look at the risk factors that are contributing to many of these diseases, again, you can see it's dietary risks, a lot of high blood pressure, high fasting plasma glucose, tobacco use, cholesterol, high body mass index, which is an expression of obesity and overweight. So, you know, I was so glad to listen to the speaker in New York about a year and a half ago. The question that he asked is, where do we derive our health from? And he did extensive research and basically came up with numeric numbers to quantify, see, where do we get our health from? So if you were to look at the slide, 84% of health that we enjoy comes from behavior, lifestyle changes, social and economic impacts, and environment. And it's only about 16% that comes from medical treatments. To me, this was an eye-opener. I believe in these things, I know, but this was nice to see Dr. Wayne Jonas, who was one of the earlier directors of NCAM at the NIH, who said, if you were to quantify, we need to understand where are we deriving health from. And this was fascinating for me to see an illustration of how other factors, how other non-clinical and non-medical factors play a role in causation of illnesses. So this is what we are told every now and then. And when I went to medical school, I spent time in England, now in the US, that people die because of these diseases. We know diabetes, stroke, heart disease, cancer, they suffer from mental health problems such as anxiety and depression. But mind you, before these things happen, there are physiological changes that we go through in our body, and we are aware of them. We begin to put on weight, maybe our blood pressure can go up and down, cholesterol, and so on and so forth. But again, if you look at the data and if you look at the science, factors that precede these changes are typically what we call as lifestyle factors. Unhealthy diet, physical inactivity, smoking, stress, poor sleep, hygiene, all of this occurring in a certain environment. So if I had to put this in simple language, I would say that it's the environment, the lifestyles, and the behavior that contribute to the negative outcomes. The one point that I have argued and I have said, and I'll keep saying it for the rest of my life, that what you're seeing in the right-hand column are the outcomes of things having gone wrong. They are not the killers. Quite honestly, the killers are the things that you saw in the first column, which has to do with behavior, with nutrition, with environmental factors. But we don't see them because we don't capture the data in the death certificates that we as nurses, doctors, we complete and provide vital statistics. So what's the future like? Doesn't look good. These are high income nations where obesity is on the rise. It's unstoppable. It is not stopping. It's not plateauing. Where is the research in this? We've been spending billions of dollars worldwide trying to control. Obesity is one of the most commonly occurring public health problems. Why aren't we able to control it? So this is India. And I'm telling you, look at this. The blue line shows this is an indication of malnutrition, maybe coming down, which is excellent. But look what's happening with this orange line. India, by 2035, at least 30% of people will be obese or overweight. This is what diabetes looks like. At the moment, it's about 77 million people and on the rise. It'll be 135 million people by 2045. That is a 75% increase in diabetes. COVID-19 is exposing the cracks in our healthcare systems, which we were not able to see before. It is exposing cracks in our social structures, in our environmental systems. Look, this is a quote, in fact, from one of the senior WHO officers who said, malnutrition will double in low-income nations, and he was giving the example of Africa in 6 to 9 months as a result of COVID-19. Not a direct effect, indirect effect. There'll be lack of healthcare, altered lifestyles. There are reports in high-income nations of people putting on weight. There's lack of physical activity. Patients are postponing their care, as are hospitals. They're deferring screen procedures. People who should have been diagnosed with cancer earlier are postponing screening. And there are reports, I'm sorry, of mental health problems, domestic abuse, depression, and suicides. And here's the data from WHO, that there is widespread disruption of healthcare services not being received by patients. Well, you know, the situation honestly is quite worrisome. The projections of these diseases are scary. People are dying earlier than they should. It's impairing quality of life. Depression, anxiety is on the rise, especially among the young. And COVID-19 is making the situation worse. We need to act now. It's about time that we get our act together, and important that we address the root causes of NCDs. Now, this is where I think our thrust should be. This is from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which is taking the initiative worldwide now for us as doctors, healthcare providers, nurses, ordinary people to focus on 6 things. Increasing physical activity, managing stress, as Neelam said, healthful eating, extremely important, focusing on whole plant-based diet. I'm happy to come back and talk about that at another time. Establishing relationships that are conducive to good health, improving your sleep, and avoiding risky substances such as tobacco. Those are the pillars of good health, of lifestyle medicine that we all propose. I'm often asked, Ravi, is there evidence? The evidence is plenty. I could spend 3 days documenting before you, showing you literature that lifestyle medicine can prevent, even treat or reverse heart disease. In cancer, it can play a very important promotive role. Cognitive functions, it will reverse diabetes, will help with musculoskeletal problems, improve depression, decrease stress, and improve overall well-being of a person. Here's just an illustration. I don't have too much time. If the world were to take care of a diet that's plant-based, where things are going wrong, you can actually end up preventing 11 million deaths on an annual basis worldwide. Creating stable and healthy social relationships, I'm talking about healthy relationships, and stress management can benefit in ways you cannot imagine. Lifestyle medicine can prevent, treat, and even chronic diseases. There is plenty of proof. Obesity, diabetes, heart disease, yes, heart disease, hypertension, cholesterol, osteoarthritis of knees. I've had patients come to me would say, you know, I put on weight, I'm getting this osteoarthritis. Well, take the weight off, the pain will go away. And it does. And clearly the mental health problems. You know, it's interesting, when I went to medical school, I think I received great training, as I did in England, where I did my residency and then moved to the US. But it is interesting, this is a survey, we should be prepared as doctors, right? We are not. This is a survey done among US medical schools. Medical schools spend no more than 20 hours of training on nutrition, which, as I said to you, can prevent 10 million deaths worldwide. And doctors, the next item, are not prepared. They feel not adequately trained to be able to address nutrition counseling. And I'm sorry, this is from Annals of Internal Medicine in the US. This should not be the case. And I think in a BMJ, British Medical Journal, there was a recent, and I'll quote this to you, from a general practitioner in New Zealand, and I'll read this to you. Medical education is focused on being the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff rather than fence at the top. And our medical environment is still set up like this. Money talks, and there's very little money in promoting eating broccoli, spinach, dal, wal, jo bhi bolo, rather than going for a walk, despite being much more effective. That should not be the case. COVID-19 has damaged the environment. It is creating a situation. People are relying on fast foods. They're not able to go to the bazaar to get fresh vegetables. The physical activity is down. Inadequate social relationships, stress and anxiety, and smoking has gone up due to boredom. I look for opportunities even in difficult times. That's the way I was born. That's the way I have been all my life. And I look for those opportunities, even though there are difficulties, we are going through them. May I submit to you that we look for positive things in our lives. To me, if you cook at home and eat at home, that's healthy cooking. There is research that shows when you cook, I cook at home, there's an emotional benefit. And mind you, even though you may not be able to go out for a walk at home. Walk up and down the steps. I do that. Spend time with family. Optimize, as Neelam nicely said, you can meditate. You can find ways to relieve your stress. And use technology in an optimum way to enhance social connectedness. Reach out to the poor. Reach out to your neighbors. All stress relieving things. Now, I wish I had more time. We cannot in all of this and should not forget the disadvantage. I feel my heart goes out to people in low-income nations, the risk of malnutrition, risk of other infections, basic needs, vaccinations are being missed. There is abuse, depression, suicides, family fabric, in some cases falling apart clearly, and a lot of other disruptions. So what I will do in the next 5 minutes is tell you a story that appeared in New York Times. I think that lays the foundation of this lifestyle movement. This is, I'm sorry, can you hear me? I hear some voices in the background.
No, you are heard.
Okay, good. Okay.
Well heard.
Thank you. So here is a story that appeared in New York Times. If you can lay your hands on it, please look at it. The title of the story was "The Island Where People Forget to Die." This is a story about a Greek person who moved from Greece to the US. And if you read the details, he went, settled down in Port Jefferson, New Jersey, bought a car, got married, had 3 children, all wonderful. But here is what happens to him a few years later. He felt short of breath climbing up the stairs. He was not able to do things. He went to see doctors. He saw 9 doctors. And he was told he has cancer. 9 doctors confirmed he had cancer, and they gave him 9 months to live. Moraitis was his name. He decided to return to Greece and Icaria, where he said he wants to be buried with his ancestors by the oak trees and overlooking the sea. What do you think happened to him? This is when he was 65. This is Moraitis at age 100 plus, attending to his garden and so on and so forth in the city he lived in. Obviously, the question is, how did he recover? Is the reporter asked him. His name is Dan Buettner. He's become very famous. If you have an opportunity, listen to him. The reporter asked him, how did this happen? How did he recover from lung cancer? He said it just went away. I actually went back to America about 25 years after moving here to see if the doctors could explain it to me. How did my cancer disappear? You know what his response was? All his doctors were dead. He lived longer than the doctors did. Buettner, the writer of that report, began to look for pockets of longevity with his research team around the world to see what is it that's happening in these societies. And there's plenty of research. There are 5 such communities in the world, one in California, in Loma Linda, in Costa Rica, Sardinia, Icaria, which is where this gentleman came from, Okinawa, Japan. The question then, of course, the question that comes up, what is it that is so special about these people? They're called blue zones, as some of you may have heard. These people move naturally. They live in an environment that's conducive such that you engage in physical activity. You don't have to go to a gym. You are nudged into doing things every 20 minutes, an hour and a half, and so on and so forth. Their diets are extremely healthy, plant-based diets, less processed, no white flour, no maida, no safed chawal, nothing of that kind. And of course, purely plant-based. I'm not saying people should not eat chicken or what have you, fish. There's a place for it, but predominantly plant-based. They belong to a faith-based organization. They find a way to shed stress. We're all different in the way we do things, as Neelam said. Relationships, healthy relationships matter, and having a purpose in life is extremely important. If I wake up in the morning and I say, these are my goals for this day or for the next week or for next 1 year, I guarantee you there is plenty of research. I'm happy to come back and talk about that. It'll make you live longer. Incorporating evidence-based lifestyle approaches in your personal life. I also speak to the physician audience in their medical practices and in population health approaches is imperative. We don't have the option of ignoring them. So with that, बहुत धन्यवाद आपका, शुक्रिया, thank you so much. I want you to all stay well. I'll be happy to take any questions or any comments that you might have. Thank you so much.
I would now like to hand over the interactive session to Supriya ma'am, who will ask questions sent by the audience on their behalf.
Thank you so much, Antra ma'am. Before I proceed with question answer session, I would sincerely like to thank Dr. Ravi and Dr. Neelam. Just for your information, we have candidates from Pan India. There are candidates from Bihar, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, etc. And they are pouring so many compliments for both of you. So thank you once again for that. And there are many questions, but due to paucity of time, I'll just take a few questions. The first question is for Dr. Neelam, and the candidate asked that what is the reason behind insomnia? Is it stress or hormonal imbalance?
Well, insomnia or lack of sleep, it has got various reasons. Any simple illness you get, the first thing that you lose is your sleep. Disturbance of sleep is a very, very elementary sign of your body not being healthy. Actually, suffering from some illness. That is one. Secondly, if you are healthy otherwise, there is no illness, still lack of sleep, it can happen due to, as I talked about, that silent stress. You do not know about it. In the first few stages, you are not doing anything, you are thinking there is no stress, it has come, it will go away, but it is accumulating. So it could be the cumulative stress. And then, of course, this lack of sleep is a cause of illnesses. If you are not being able to get proper sleep, if you are not sleeping well, it could herald any of the lifestyle diseases. It is a precursor to them. It will precipitate them, you can say. So there are multifarious causes and effects of sleeplessness. Sleep should be in a proper, it is our basic pattern, 24 hours a day, 8 hours to work, 8 hours to enjoy, and 8 hours to sleep. There can be 1 to 2 hours here and there if somebody has some backlog to be finished, or some calls are there, or some exams are there. For some time, your body can cope up. But if it becomes a habit to alter too much of your cycle, now with all the night shifts happening, that the natural diurnal pattern that you sleep at night and you wake in the day has gone totally haywire. But still, if you can build your 24 hours of personal biological clock and make it 8 plus 8 plus 8, it is the best way to do it. And if there is anything wrong, you have to look at all these factors, whether you have got a physical illness or you have got undiagnosed stress under you, or otherwise it can lead to, or your habit has become like that. Sometimes you get into the habit of sleeping too little. Some people can cope with it, but not all. So if it is causing you, then sometimes it then ultimately comes up with, high blood pressure. And what happens that in your work field, the excitement, the enthusiasm of the work, sometimes it makes you keep going. But then you must find time to relax simultaneously. Otherwise, sleep lack can both be a cause as well as the effect of stress and many other things.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. There's another question for you. What is the best technique of meditation and how it helps to relax both mentally and physically?
Well, see, meditation is a part of Ashtanga Yoga. And meditation is that part which you do not, as I told in my talk also, and I was talking about the contemplation and concentration and meditation. What you do are the things like yogic exercises, the yam and the niyam, which are the part of Ashtanga Yoga, the pranayam, and then the contemplation, introspection, and concentration. Then once all these things are happening, which are working on your physical, yoga basically works on your physical, mental, and emotional. Your Annamaya Kosh, Pranamaya Kosh, and Anandamaya Kosh. It works at all the levels. So then meditation happens to, it is your opening up of your consciousness to the higher sources of cosmic energy, which are going to bring you immense peace and joy to you. And you will suddenly feel that all the turmoil of your life has gone away. So it is from the basic yogic exercises, by the time you reach the meditation, it penetrates through all these realms of your, the physical body, mental body, emotional body. And with this change in your attitude and all, life then, in spite of the stress, becomes a celebration to enjoy. There is a new meaning to your life. The aimless turmoil becomes a purpose of life. And that is a reason enough for you to smile.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Now this another question is for Dr. Ravi, and the participant asks that what can we expect in future regarding the spread of this COVID pandemic, and will there be a peak period followed by a significant reduction in cases?
So it's an excellent question. I wanted to thank the listener for raising that question. If you look at the data and the science, we are beginning to see that there are countries and communities that have peaked and have started to go down. And this is true for most countries and communities around the world. So it is everyone's hope that this will begin to go down. But if you couple that with herd immunity, which is many people becoming immune to infection, and if you combine that vaccine, we hope that pandemic will be behind us fairly soon. So it is everyone's hope. I'm an optimist. And if you look at the past pandemics, that's what we've seen. Hopefully we will see the same thing with this current epidemic. I'm very hopeful. As I said, there are difficulties, there are challenges. We have seen challenges come, but they go. And the same thing will happen to pandemic. You asked, the other question that you asked was, what was the other question in that? So this was about the pandemic.
The other question was that will there be a peak period followed by a second?
Okay. So the second question was, will there be a recurrence or a second or a third wave? And again, if you look at the past experience, there are usually second waves and third waves, but they're not as intense as the one that we are currently going through. And once you begin to see a decline, there is immunity. We will and likely see some, there is already a talk about second waves in some European and North American communities. But my feeling is the second wave will not be as intense as the one that we are going through, because the one thing that we've done extremely well worldwide is the mitigation by some of the methods that I mentioned.
Right. Thank you, sir. This is the last question for the day, and this is for Dr. Ravi. One of my colleagues has asked this question. Our students are young, energetic, and enthusiastic. What are the ways in which they can lend a helping hand and make significant contributions to society, keeping in mind the current crisis?
So, you know, I'm so happy that there is an awareness among the young people wanting to do things. If there was a way you could help, and I gave you some examples, reaching out to the neighbors, reaching out to the disadvantaged people, perhaps even forming groups where you can get together, supporting people, increasing their awareness. In order for you to increase health awareness, you don't have to be a doctor necessarily. You have to have an appreciation of some of the things that you can do within the scope of your work. I know that there are a lot of young people engaging in charity work. When we were in medical school earlier, we were not doctors yet. I remember helping out in the smallpox eradication program, going out to the community. So young people can do a lot. What they can do also is, as I've seen with a lot of medical students, they get together and then rope in experts. This way, the energy of the young can be coupled with the energy and expertise of people who have wisdom, if you will, or intellectual ability. And I think that if you work in a team with some of the faculty, other experts with your energy, you can move mountains. So I think young people can do a lot. I'm so grateful for that question. And I think that there are ways and means to help. I'll be happy to participate in any such discussion in the future with the young people at the colleges at the University of Delhi. So thank you for asking that question.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Now, over to Antra, ma'am.
Thank you, Supriya ma'am. A heartfelt thank you to the speakers for such a wonderful and enlightening session. I would now like to invite Dr. Ruchira Dhingra, Program Officer, NSS, to address the audience. Ma'am's audio is connecting. I think I just 1 minute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. If I would request you to address the audience.
Yes. नमस्कार मित्रों, वेबिनार में उपस्थित सभी सम्मानीय विद्वजन, मनीषियों, विभिन्न कॉलेजों से आए हमारे प्रतिभागियों, शोधार्थियों, आप सबका इस वेबिनार में हृदय की अतल गहराइयों से स्वागत, वंदन, अभिनंदन। जीवन एक निरंतर चलने वाला संघर्ष है, जिसमें व्यक्ति एक ओर अपने परिवेश और दूसरी ओर स्वयं से संघर्ष कर अपने को समायोजित करने का निरंतर प्रयास करता रहता है। यदि हमारा मन स्वस्थ नहीं होता तो हमें कुछ भी स्वस्थ नहीं लगता। एक छोटी सी कहानी है कि एक लड़की बहुत ज्यादा उदास थी और उसको लगता था कि उसकी खिड़की से दिखने वाले पेड़ की पत्तियां जैसे जैसे खत्म होने लगेंगी वैसे वैसे उसकी मृत्यु पास आएगी। उसके पिता ने देखा और जो अंतिम पंक्ति बची थी उस पर उन्होंने फेविकोल लगाकर उसको चिपका दिया। बच्ची को लगा कि ये तो पत्ती है, इसलिए मेरा जीवन चलता रहेगा। कहने का मतलब ये है कि जिस तरह से हम अपने मन को समझा सकते हैं उसी तरह से हमें अपने जीवन को जीना होगा। तनाव का संबंध प्रेरणा से भी होता है और ये प्रेरणा नकारात्मक और सकारात्मक दोनों हो सकती है। जैसे हमने आज भी जाना कि कोविड-19 की जिस तरह की संख्या हमारे सामने निरंतर आ रही है उससे हमारे अंदर एक नकारात्मक ऊर्जा का संचार हो रहा है। इससे हमें बचना चाहिए। एनएसएस शिवाजी कॉलेज के सभी पदाधिकारियों, छात्रों और सभी टीचरों की तरफ से मैं आपके लिए मंगलमय कामना करती हूँ। आपके स्वस्थ जीवन के लिए, आपके प्रसन्न जीवन के लिए हम सब निरंतर ईश्वर से प्रार्थना करते हैं। सर धन्यवाद।
Thank you, ma'am. It was very thought-provoking what you said. I now invite Meenakshi Yadav to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Antara. I'll take this opportunity to thank Dr. Ravinder Mamtani and Dr. Neelam Verma to take some time out of their busy schedules to be here with us. This seminar enlightened us to understand the importance of physical as well as mental well-being. In the current scenario, when we all are stuck in this pandemic, there's an urgent need to acknowledge the significance of stress management and healthy lifestyle. Dr. Neelam Verma started her talk with the general idea of the general challenges of modern lifestyle and spoke with a specific context of corona pandemic. She also spoke on biorhythms of life, the origin of stress, and the physiological and psychological and consequently social and professional impact of this pandemic and stress. Dr. Neelam Verma, she also spoke on the stress management, on the idea of stress management, on the scientific principles behind stress and the techniques to manage that. She also provided us an insight into the idea of correct postures and the importance of yoga in our day-to-day mental and physiological well-being. Now I'll come to Dr. Mamtani. He spoke on the idea of increasing population and how the idea of increasing population is affecting the flora and fauna. He also spoke on the idea of endemic, pandemic, and the outbreak of diseases. He also provided us an insight into the emergence and spread of pandemics like corona. He also gave us examples of polio and smallpox and other diseases. He also underscored the symptoms and transmissibility of the virus. He went on to talk about the practices to avoid infection, which was very important. Dr. Mamtani also provided statistics to reformulate the existing information on corona and the need to create awareness based on scientific and logical explanations rather than relying on rumors. I once again thank Dr. Mamtani and Dr. Verma for this enriching and wonderful experience. Now over to you.
Thank you everyone for a lovely session. I thank all the participants for attending. And I would request everybody to please fill the feedback form before leaving. The link has been sent on all the groups and on Zoom platform as well. It will be active for only 1 hour, so I request you all. It was truly a lovely session. Thank you so much to both the speakers. Thank you to the participants.